So today we're looking at a few money questions that I have received over the past year, and these are some of the most common ones that have come up. And often I'm asked to do a video to answer the question, but the more I thought about it, a lot of the answers didn't really require a whole video, and I could probably answer the question and give context in less than a paragraph. So I felt that this was probably a better approach. That way I can knock out the list in one shot. So the first question is how much to save in an emergency fund. Now, I love talking about saving money. I think it should definitely be a priority for everyone. But one thing that I have discovered from reading comments and messages is that a lot of people feel or think that $1,000 is enough to have in an emergency fund, when the truth is that barely scratches the surface. But while $1,000 is a good starting point, you should really aim for a minimum 3 to 6 months worth of income or basic living expenses, whichever you prefer. And when you hear the term fully funded emergency fund, this amount is what a lot of experts are talking about. But although 3 to 6 months is typical advice, some people are more comfortable having more, maybe as much as 12 months of income or basic living expenses. So that's really a call that you have to make. So the second question is, how much money should I spend on fun? This is another excellent question, and I had to include it because spending too much on fun, which includes entertainment and recreation, this is why a lot of budgets don't work. Now, I recently did a video talking about the 50-30-20 budgeting rule, which basically states that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your after-tax income on wants, and included within that wants category is recreation and entertainment. However, your wants category, it also includes other expenses such as hair appointments, nail appointments, subscription services. So obviously you can't spend the entire 30% on fun. So as far as how much is okay to spend on fun, I've seen financial advisors recommend no more than 5% to 10% of your after-tax income. So if you bring home $3,500 a month, you should really keep it between $175 and $350. But at the end of the day, you really have to be reasonable to your circumstances. So if you need to bump up your savings efforts or maybe your debt repayment efforts, you probably should stay closer to the lower end of that percentage. Another question is there a such thing as good debt? Now, there are definitely varying opinions on this. You have some people who feel that all debt is bad and unnecessary. So if you buy a house, you should pay it off as soon as possible. You should only buy a car if you have cash, and you should never use a credit card. But if you look at different definitions floating around, bad debt is often associated with any debt that's not making you any money. And I would like to add, it might also include debt that you're not using responsibly. So as far as saying that all debt is bad, that is not something I agree with, because for a lot of people, in order to buy a house, that means you have to get a mortgage, and not everyone's in a position to pay off their house early. And depending on your occupation, you might need to get a college degree. And if you don't have the cash, that often involves getting a student loan. But the key here, I think, is being smart with the debt that you do have, not getting in over your head and counting the costs. So before you get that degree, make sure that it's able to pay for itself. And likewise, if you want to buy a house, make sure you're not house poor. And if you're going to use a credit card, don't carry the balance from month to month. So another question is, when should I start investing? Now, a general recommendation that I see a lot is that you should have a fully funded emergency fund before you consider investments outside of your retirement, which is so smart because if something happens, you need to have cash liquid in order to keep your head above water. So one thing you can do to get started is maybe first save a small rainy day fund, which can be from $1,000 to $3,000, whatever you feel comfortable with. And once you have a small amount tucked away, then you can think about enrolling in your employer's 401k or maybe opening an IRA. And after you have that set up, now focus on building a fully funded emergency fund. And once you have enough money tucked away where you feel that you can handle a real emergency, then you can start looking at investments outside of your retirement account. And these include different options such as individual stocks, ETFs, index funds, or maybe mutual funds. Another question is, where should I keep my savings? Now, I think a regular savings account is a great place to keep money that you need immediate access to, maybe a minimum of $1,000. But I don't think this finance is the best place to keep the majority of your money because the interest that you earn will be pennies, and you can definitely do a lot better keeping your cash in an online high yield savings account. And the reason I suggest keeping a small amount in your regular savings is because with an online savings account, it can take 1 to 2 days to complete a transfer. So with your cash in a local bank, that can give you immediate access to any funds that you might need today. Another question is, should I save or pay down debt first? This is another question I get asked frequently. And I have to say, I don't think it's necessary to have a fully funded emergency fund before you start paying off debt. But I do think it's important to have something in savings first. Because if you don't have anything in savings, it really only takes one emergency to push you further into debt. So definitely have a small rainy day fund, whatever amount you're comfortable with. And once you set something aside for the unexpected, you can now prioritize debt repayment. Now, one approach that has worked for a lot of people is basically to split your efforts. So if you have $500 a month that you can dedicate to either savings or debt repayment, you can either put the entire $500 on debt, or you can put $250 on debt and then $250 in savings. So another question is, how can I improve my credit score? Now, when it comes to building a better score, you first have to understand the factors that make up your credit score, because it's only by understanding these can you then make decisions that will improve it. So the first factor making up your credit score is your payment history, and it makes up roughly 35% of your score. So it is so important that you pay all of your bills on time every single month. The second factor is the amount of revolving debt you owe, and this makes up 30% of your score. Now, credit card debt is a type of revolving debt, and this is need to know information, because if you keep your credit card balances high or if you max them out, that means that your credit score might not be as high as it could be. So to improve your credit score, you really need to work on paying off those balances, or at the very least pay them down and keep your balances below 30% of your credit line. Now, the other three factors include the length of your credit history, your credit mix, and new accounts. And even though these make up a smaller percentage of your score, they're also important. And with regard to the length of credit history, patience is really the key here, because you do not build an 800 credit score overnight. That happens in time after years of responsible credit use. And as far as credit mix, diversifying can help your credit score because it shows that you have a history of managing different types of credit responsibly. However, even though that is the case, you should not apply for new credit just for the sake of having a new account. You should really only apply when necessary. And this leads us to the fifth factor that makes up your credit score, which is new credit. And what some people don't realize is that opening too many new credit accounts in a short span of time can hurt your credit score. It's estimated that applications and every new inquiry on your credit report can reduce your credit score by as much as 2 points. So if you apply for 10 credit accounts in a given month, that means that you could potentially lose 20 points off of your credit score. So this is all that I have for you guys today, and I might do something like this again in the future. So if you have any money related questions, definitely feel free to let me know below. And also give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this video. I talk a lot about personal finance. So if you like content like this and you want to see more, I do post every weekend and sometimes during the week. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in a few days.